We talked a little bit earlier about the Alt or Option key to replace a clip in our timeline from the source. And I want to elaborate on that a little bit and talk about just how powerful the Alt or Option key can be in your timeline while you're editing. So as we demonstrated a couple of times throughout this course, we can use the Alt or Option key to create a copy of something on our timeline. Let me just show you again what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out on my timeline here. I'm going to grab this last clip and I'm going to just hold Option and drag it out. Now I've kept this one here and I also made a copy of it back here. Let me show you an example of a situation where we might want to use the Option key with a handful of clips. Let me get rid of this one back here. I'm going to grab these 3 clips. Now, my feeling is that this transition can be improved. But if you were to look down here, I have tons of sound effects, tons of music, and tons of dialogue. And I don't want to do a lot of work where I might accidentally mess something up. So I'm going to hold the Option key and drag them out. I don't want to lose their place. I want to keep them here for reference, but I do want to change things around and try some things out. So let me come in here, and let's just say I'm not a huge fan of that additive dissolve. I can remove it. And I don't like how I look right here. So maybe I want to take this clip up here and slide it out a little bit. Maybe, yep, I think my hands up here is a little bit better. Move this one over, come down here. So I could do all this work back here in my timeline, and there is a little bit of room for it, but it's a lot easier and less messy to do it in the back when I'm not going to get in the way of anything. When I'm done, I'm going to reapply a transition here. I can simply grab everything and put it back, line it back up, and I can overwrite what was there if I want to get rid of it. So this is a nice, safe, and fast way of working in my timeline using the Option key. But there is a lot more that the Option key will do than just that. Something that I do occasionally is I use the Option key to drag a copy of something up to a higher video row as an indicator of something that I might need to pay attention to in the future. For example, this shot right here. I really like it, but I feel like it could use some graphics or some visual effects to really tie it together with the rest of the pieces that are around it. So I'm going to take a copy of it, hold Option, and drag it up, let's just say to another video row. I'm going to keep it up here. This is a visual indicator that this shot needs to be worked on. Let me just make all of my video tracks a little bit smaller. Okay, now they're more visible. And I can see that this shot up here is hanging above my other shot. So I'll use the Option key to drag copies of shots up as a reminder that they need to be worked on. Now, of course, a marker could do something very similar, but this shot will respect any sort of selecting and dragging that I might be doing. Or if I wanted to copy things out of the way for some experimenting, I could do that. And it won't require me to do any kind of ripple deleting to move this shot. It will move like any other clip. Another thing that I might use the Option key for is to create instances of a text layer that I already styled. For example, this text layer here has this font style like this, and I might want to keep it. I'm going to drag a copy of it by holding the Option key and putting it back here. Come back here, and I'm going to say I don't want this box anymore. So I'll just come into the Essential Graphics here and remove the rectangular shape and the linear wipe. But I want to keep the text, and I can always change the words of the text now. I could say, best editor. I can make it longer, and I'll add a default transition at the back of it. So this was a really fast way of recreating this text style with these 2 different font styles in it without having to simply recreate it from scratch. And I can do that again. And I can say, still the best editor. Now, another really powerful trick is to use the Option key to replace things from your bin. And I'm going to show you a little bit how that works using some different footage. So let me open up my bin here with my Alt key footage. And I have some stock footage here that we're going to use as an example. Let me go ahead and make a new sequence here. And we'll use this RE 1080p default. I'm going to move this sequence into my bin for organization's sake. And we'll open this up. I'm going to drag this watermarked stock footage in there. I'm going to keep the sequence settings. This piece of footage is actually smaller than my sequence because typically with watermarked stock footage, it's a little bit smaller than the real stuff. So I'll just say keep existing settings, and it fits into my sequence because it's been scaled to frame size. So here in my sequence, I have this piece of stock footage with a watermark on it, and it's a shot of a dog jumping into some water. I'm going to show you that if I were to open up the stock image that I purchased without the watermark, and I were to double click it and open it up in my source, I can now hold the Option key and replace it. And there it is. It's been replaced and the watermark is now gone. Now this is just one example of how replacing some video with the Option key works. Let me show you some other cool things about what happens when you hold the Option key and replace things. So let me go ahead and undo that. I'm going to put back in the one with the watermark. I'm going to do a little bit of editing. So I want to begin the shot here where the dog is in midair. I'm going to make a cut. I'm going to get rid of the beginning part here, and we'll leave it blank for now. Go to the end, and I like when the dog lands in the water right here. And this is great. I want to get out of the shot right here. So I just wanted this part of the shot. The dog is in midair, lands in the water, and does a little bit of paddling. That's all I wanted. Now, let me go ahead and use the cleared version of this stock footage from my bin, which is now in my source. I'm going to hold Option, and I'm going to drag it onto it. So look what happened. The shot is now at the beginning, even though I had made an in point and an out point and cut it up on the timeline. So now the shot begins at the beginning, and there's the dog running, and he never even gets to the water. That's not what we wanted. I'm going to undo this. What we wanted was to begin the shot right here with the dog in midair and have him land in the water somewhere around the middle of the shot. So there's a way to go ahead and do that. What I could do is I could drag the playhead and try to find the exact point, which is the exact same frame, but that's going to be a little bit challenging. Let's just say it's this one. I'm not sure if this is exactly the same one, and I can set an in point or push I, and I can now hold Option and drag it. And it was pretty close, but not quite. I'm going to undo, redo, and we want to make it exactly perfect. Well, there's a way to do that. First, I'm going to clear my in and out points, just back to the original shot. And it doesn't matter where the playhead is, but if I were to hold Option, but also hold Shift while replacing it, it's going to replace it exactly in the timing of the original shot from the bin. So if both shots are the exact same length of time, and I hold Option and Shift while doing the replace, it will replace it using the in point on the timeline as opposed to the in point from the shot in the bin. Another thing that's kind of cool, I'm going to go ahead and undo that replace there. So we're back to the watermarked footage, is if I were to add some effects to my watermarked footage, for example, come down to the effects, let's go to favorites, let's add a Gaussian blur, and we'll add some blur value. Right, just like that. I'll do repeat edge pixels. I'm also going to blow it up a little bit. Let's go 130%, and I'm going to kind of rotate it. So maybe it's like a nice background for some piece of graphics that we have. But I do want to get rid of that watermark. Even though it's not terribly visible, I still want to clear it out of the way. So I'm going to go back to my source here, which has my cleared image. I'm going to go ahead and clear those in and out points again. And now I'm going to hold Option and Shift to replace it in time. And when I do, it's going to keep all of the effects on it. So if I've already done a lot of work to my clip, like color correction or blur or position, scale, or rotation adjustments, it'll keep all of those when I use Option to replace the clip. It's a pretty cool technique, and it's going to save your butt in a lot of different ways as you keep working on your projects. This lesson is going to have some homework. First, download the Alt-Option key function cheat sheet found below this video. Next, try each of these techniques on your own, using either your own assets or the footage and audio found in the hands-on workshop section of this course. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to be dynamically linking with After Effects.